Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the FullSpeedRC MiniPusher. It's a CineWhoop. Of course, the main board is an all-in-one from Nameless RC. It is the F412T, which is 2 to 4S compatible and has a 12 amp 4-in-1 ESC. While we're here, you can see I stuck my FrSky RXSR receiver right to the board. The motors are RCN Power 1204 5000 kV motors, and the props are the Gemfan D63 2.5 inch props. Camera is the Caddx EOS 2. Obviously, it comes with the prop guards. I broke this one. It also comes with a naked GoPro mount, as well as an Insta360 Go mount. I bought my naked GoPro from goodventuredrones.com. It was already assembled. I decided not to swap it out. Nameless RC does have their own Beck for the naked GoPro, which is up to 6S compatible. And they also have their own case, which would have been a lot more stylish. Motor post to motor post looks like I'm getting 102 millimeters. Carbon fiber is a little tough to measure, but I think it's 2 millimeters, not 2.5. With the naked GoPro, it weighs 114 grams. Eye fluid on this tired Tattoo 3S 850 milliamp battery, which brings the weight up to 183.5 grams. Without the naked GoPro, it weighs a little over 88 grams. And again, with that same battery, it weighs 157.5 grams. The weight might be slightly off as I had to modify this mount in order for my camera to sit in there very well. I also used a little bit of bookbinding tape right here on top to secure the camera in there. This was a few days ago. It was really cold, probably about 37, 38 degrees, but it was calm. So got to take advantage of that. And we're going to have about a 5-minute flight here. I think it's 5 minutes and 3 seconds if you really check the timeline for takeoff and everything. And this is a naked GoPro or a naked Hero 6. I did find that the FPV stabilization was on for the Hero on my last video. So I left it on for this video so you can compare the two of them. I didn't know that was by on. I'm really a newbie when it comes to naked GoPros, so I didn't know what to look for. I did not know they had FPV stabilization built into them. So that's a fairly interesting thing, at least to me. Maybe others of you already knew that. I suspect many of you did. But for those of you that were like me and kind of out in the cold, Hero 6 has FPV stabilization, which probably does help a fair bit. The big difference between this one and the Beta FPV 95X, the Beta FPV 95X has that top plate that has those gummies in it to smooth out any bumps. So if you weren't to be using FPV stabilization, you should get good stable footage still. I didn't have any problems with this one. Like I said in the quick roll, I did have to modify the mount in order to make it work because, you know, the mount isn't made for the Beta FPV case, but I did not want to take it apart and put the full speed back inside my naked GoPro and then recase it. Once you got something working, it's best to stick with it. And speaking of these naked GoPros, they're kind of quirky, aren't they? Kind of a strange thing. You know, I really kind of struggled with it a little bit, you know, figuring out the buttons and the lights and what you're supposed to press and when you're supposed to press it. You should be able to use your phone with it. I think my Wi-Fi might already be burned out. I've only been able to connect to it once or twice, and then it didn't last very long, so that could be an issue. I love running over the pergola. That's something I do repeatedly. I think it's that sound as it passes over my head that kind of, I don't know, it's pretty cool. I like to do it. Of course, fall has set in hard and fast. As I mentioned early in the video, it's quite cold, but it was a very calm day, so that's really the best day I have in order to go out and do this sort of flying. The flight time is going to vary quite a bit. They actually recommend a 1100 milliamp 3S battery for flight times of 6 to 8 minutes. I'm flying an 850 and it's an old 850. I don't have a lot of 3S batteries that are much more than 650 milliamps. So I only had 3 of the 850s, so when I'd fly it, that's what I'd use, and they've got to be 3+ years old. So flight time on this will vary heavily. Probably if you have fresher batteries with less age and cycles on them, you'll probably get more flight time. I think the footage looks pretty good. Of course, you can color grade the footage. I think people who do color grading also shoot in RAW format on GoPros, so you can manipulate the colors a little bit better. But this, you know, I don't want to edit the footage up too much to where it looks really good, which is probably what you would do if you're interested in this sort of quad. I just want to show it to you and make sure you get a full example of how it flies in my hands, in my space, with my equipment and the battery that I chose to use. I mentioned also in the quick roll how I broke one of the prop guards, and I think that's something that should be improved. These prop guards are not going to last very long. Even if it's warm, I don't suspect the prop guards are going to do much to protect the object you hit more than once. I think they're going to break apart. I really didn't have any serious crashes with this one at any stretch. I may have bumped a tree or two. I think that prop guard actually broke on a landing, which, you know, sometimes our landings can be rough, and I am landing on concrete mainly. But that's something that you should be aware of, that if you choose to go with this particular product, I would get some extra prop guards if having the prop guards are important to you, which they should be, because the quad sits on the prop guards and you have to take off from them. So if you were to have one that was too broken, you might have a prop that's rubbing on the ground, and you don't want that. Of course, messed up props aren't going to help your footage or your flight. I'm glad to see the RC Empower motors. That's a motor I've used several times before. You've seen them on the channel a few times. I built the Tadpole with the RC Empower 1204 5000 kV motors. I also am planning to do, at some point, more RC Empower motor builds. But, you know, with the weather setting in, I've already got 3 builds I'm kind of got built, and I need to tune them up and get them going. So I may not get to that until we get to spring, but who knows? You never know. Winter can always be sometimes mild, or it can sometimes be extreme. We'll have to see how it goes. We did already have a snowstorm. If you missed the last video where I talked about that, we had snow, kind of light snow for 2 days. Some people might call that a dusting, but it was enough to stick on the ground, and we had maybe a quarter or a half inch. We're going to come in and land and wrap up the flight. Let's jump over to the OSD, and we can take a sample of that as well. Of course, this is the Caddx EOS 2 camera. Some people prefer to stay away from that camera. That's up to you. You need to judge these things on your own. But I think the primary point to look at with this flight, this is what you see through the goggles. Don't get confused. The footage I showed you previously, that is from the GoPro. That is not what you see in the goggles. Also, I was not very impressed with the VTX. I am running at 400 milliwatts. When you're disarmed, it sits at 25 milliwatts, probably to save on heat or any possible sort of problem. But when you arm it, it then switches to a higher power when you have it set to that. So you can see that through the OSD on the top right-hand side. Some people get confused by that. I've seen a number of postings where people say, "Oh, my VTX is only at 25 milliwatts because I've got it set to 400 though." Well, when you arm, it goes to 400. That's another setting in Betaflight to where on ARM, it goes to full power. But I just was not very impressed with the video reception, even at 400 milliwatts. And you can definitely see it when I go around to the chimney side of the house, and I kind of circle that bush over there by the gate. The breakup's pretty bad. Usually I can get all the way around the house on 400 milliwatts. Matter of fact, on 400 milliwatts, I can get all the way around my neighbor's house. Many of you have probably seen other videos where I've done that. With this one, I just wouldn't do that. So that's something to consider, but I do think you can buy this without the VTX and put your own VTX in if that's something that you choose to do. I know that this is carried from Good Venture Drones. I know a number of shops are probably carrying this internationally. I might not know their names. Of course, you can get these from Banggood as well. Something to note is that in the last video, I referenced buying naked GoPros from Good Venture Drones, and then someone came back and said, I can't find it. Well, when they don't have stock, they don't have it listed. So they're trying to go out on the market and find Hero 6s to make naked so that they can sell them, and they do the work for you. So it's just, I would say if you want to get a naked GoPro that's already assembled for you with whatever BEC and case you want to get, whether it's full speed or beta FPV or some other, then you probably need to join the Good Venture Drones Facebook group. That's the best way to be aware when they have more in stock, because again, on the website, if they don't have stock, they don't list them, so you can't really sign up for an alert when the product returns. That would be an interesting feature, but I didn't see that when I was on the website. And I will have another product from Good Venture Drones coming up. You might be wondering, why all this Good Venture Drone stuff? Well, I bought a bunch of stuff from Good Venture Drones, and they're a company here in the U.S., a company that I think is doing good work, and they're doing their best to support the FPV community. And whenever I buy stuff from a shop, I tend to talk about it because that's where it came from. Not a full sample of what you see in the goggles, but I think that should be plenty while I yammered on about various things for you to get a fix on how it flies in the goggles and also the video reception, which is something that I wasn't crazy about. So this cable that I have plugged into my GoPro, that's how it powers it. This does not come pre-soldered, at least it didn't on mine, so you will have to do that work yourself. The antenna seats in here fairly nicely, but I keep finding it comes out. I don't know if it's because of my handling or not, and you can see there's a split in that mount, and then the zip tie kind of holds things in, and when it goes in, it seems to be holding where it would hold it just fine, but when I return to mine, I keep finding it out. This one is got the all-in-one board that's a little bit further away from the ground, So I had some extra space, and that's one of the few places that were some extra space that was easy to reach. So that's where I chose to stick my receiver down there, and then just kind of poked my antennas out back. It would be best to have one antenna higher up and 90 degrees, and then another one further out back for the maximum range. Right here between the ducts, hopefully you can see that, is the FullSpeed Nano VTX. That is the VTX that we've been talking about in the video. Also, this board is actually quite popular. I think it's sold on FPV Cycle and a few other sites. So if you're looking at building with an all-in-one and you'd only need a 12 amp 4-in-1 ESC, this is one to look at. They've got some nice sized solder pads with some good spacing. That's the thing that kind of sticks out to me, is spacing between the solder pads on some all-in-one boards can be actually quite tight. I think this has some of the larger spacing on it, so you have more margin for error when it comes to soldering on this board. Of course, there's plugs on there if you want to use the plugs, and I think it's fairly interesting that RCN Power made these motors and they made them with plugs. I didn't know they did that until I had received this product. Mounting the GoPro, it's not hard. It's just an exercise in manipulation between the screw and the TPU you have to go through, and then when you have this mount, this strap you put through this little hole. See the slot right there in the mount? And it's got a little inset. You really can't see it, but the mount on the bottom side has a little slot in it, and that kind of locks it into place. Then you just kind of fold it over. I put it on the inside of the mount for the camera. I suppose you could put it on the outside, but I chose to run it on the inside. I think that was the easiest way, probably, is why I chose to do it that way. I did have to kind of carve some of this out and take some of the beauty factor away of the TPU, just to make sure that this camera would sit in there nice and straight. And then I put that tape that I mentioned in the quick roll, the bookbinding tape, which is one of the many tapes that I bought on my search for the ultimate motor wire tape. And I just put that right on top, just a little 1-inch strip, and that seemed to hold the camera in well, and then would leave my buttons exposed out here. It does come with the battery strap already inserted, and it is allowed for toilet tanking, so that's how I like to do these things, because if I do have a crash, I don't want it bonking into my $300 camera. I guess I'm kind of a cheapskate worried about stuff like that breaking. Note on the screws, when it comes to the mounting of the board, those are flush mounted, and we do have, let's see, we've got Phillips there, we've got some more Phillips there, and then these are all hex. What do we got through here? Those are Phillips. So we have a mixed bag of screws. You know, it's a little detail that I like to look at, because when I'm changing things or tinkering things, if I can just have one tool out for the screws, I kind of like that. It's not a big deal to have more than one, but it's just something I look at, because I notice whenever I have to go find another screwdriver, especially when it's Phillips, you want the head to kind of seat in there well, and they don't always. So sometimes, especially with these nylon Phillips screws, you may actually want to use a small flathead screwdriver in order to manipulate those to securely, so you don't strip them out. Phillips heads, you know, they come in all sorts of different sizes. P2 is the most common, but they come in others as well. So depending upon the Phillips head, you may find you need to scramble for a different screwdriver in order to seat into the screw head very well. Hex is always something I prefer. Last bit would be the price point. Of course, this price is not with the naked GoPro. That's a separate purchase. But as I said in the quick roll, it does come with the extra mounts. What else does it come with? Well, I didn't put it in the quick roll this time. Try to change things up, see if anybody noticed. You get an extra set of props. Looks like one extra screw in there. You also get a couple little spacers. Hopefully you can see those right down there. A couple extra spacers. And I got 2 stickers. Back to the price. Comes in $162.99 for the FR Sky version. Of course, you can get it in FlySky, DSMX. You can get it without a receiver. You can get it with Crossfire. You can also buy the Insta360 Go with your purchase if you choose to do that. Again, I'll have links down in the video description to Good Venture Drones, as well as Banggood and any other sites that I might find it on. Of course, that listing will just be kind of a quick hitter. You can always search the web for this product if you're interested in finding it from a shop in your local area. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the section down below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.